Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast. I am Race for the Prize. Let's look at the salaries for the Cup Series at Bristol. Find some value, find the good point per dollar plays. But first, racefortheprize.com. That's where you can go to get access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. $27 for the month of March. You want to negotiate pro rating? I'm here to listen to you. You want to buy for the weekend? $10. Give it a try, man. Bristol, I'm not going to go into lineup construction. I've already talked about that enough in previous videos. My stance is I want 3 hogs or 3 dominators or 3 drivers that'll get fast laps and laps led. You're going to have to pay for those, but that's okay. We got 500 laps. Very easy for these drivers to hit 10x. Very easy for both drivers to go north of 9x. So point per dollar wise, trying to do some sort of mathematical equation. Can I make it work? Yes, you can make it work. It always works. Top 3 on my board, Larson, Hamlin, and Bell. And you can see in previous races, they're hog points or dominator points. Clearly, these guys can run fast laps, lead a bunch of laps. They've demonstrated that. They've always been good at this track. I'm on board with all 3 of them. I mean, even Kyle Larson scored 34 hog points starting dead last. If you want to break down the race, I've got a video that explains everything. Check it out. We had Busch getting some points here. Hasn't been quite as good in previous seasons. Not really excited about the equipment. Chris Buescher, as I have been hammering, RFK is the real deal. Buescher is the real deal at Bristol. And if Buescher is the real deal at Bristol, then Brad Keselowski has always been the real deal at Bristol. He is also going to be in play as a top candidate. Now, just because we're seeing these drivers around here that haven't led laps doesn't mean they're not going to. This could be a breakthrough for Byron. Blaney, although the last 2 races haven't gone well, if you go a little bit deeper into his stats, he has led a bunch of laps 2018 spring at Bristol. We got to make sure that we're throwing out the dirt races, looking at only the concrete. Blaney is definitely in that category. Obviously, they can't all lead laps. So if it's a Bell year, it's not going to be a Blaney year. If it's these 3 guys, then it's not these 3 guys. But I'm less likely to slide Busch with the way the RCR is running right now at the moment into that equation. But I could see Byron breaking through at this track. He has been a top 5 car. Could he lead laps and run fast laps? Yes. I downgraded him way too much at Phoenix because of practice, because of his own admitted struggles. But if you've got 500 laps, maybe they can get this thing dialed in. Now, the counterclaim to that is if we don't get a lot of pit stops, then is he going to be able to adjust on the truck and get it where he needs it to go? And he still has to outrace these guys. Obviously, these are my 3 faves, but Byron's there, Blaney's there, Buescher, Keselowski. Logano's had some terrible luck, but even without the terrible luck, hasn't quite demonstrated the speed at the tracks that I want to see him demonstrate the speed at. So I'm not really as bullish. Tyler Reddick had a top 5 truck last year, played the pit sequencing incorrectly. That took him out of contention for a top 5. That put him in a place where he didn't have good track position. People may dismiss him because he didn't get a really good finish, but had the pit sequencing gone different, had he played his card better, then he could have been in that top 5 pack. He could have possibly led laps, run fast laps, maybe jumped some guys on pit road. But given the way that he's running, he's probably going to lose spots on pit road. But at 9,000, I think I can definitely go there, really, because you look at his driver rating in the last 2 races. Las Vegas, Phoenix, 2 really different tracks, highest driver rating. So they definitely have some speed with the 2311 Toyotas. They had speed, like I said, last year at Bristol, just played the pit sequencing wrong. 9,000 is a spot where he definitely can fit in as the 3rd hog for sure, maybe even the 2nd one to give you a little bit of salary relief. But his salary is definitely appealing to me. Truex really hasn't shown anything at this racetrack in a while. Had a pretty good race last week on the long run, but I just don't like the way that he's been trending at Bristol. Yeah, he's still a great short track racer. This has never been his best place, and it is the best place of these guys up here. That's where I would lean in that direction. Not really interested. Ross Chastain can flash, but 8,500 is pretty affordable. I still don't think that this is his best place. I don't think that Trackhouse is going to necessarily nail the setup. And do I see him taking fast laps and laps led away from these guys? I do not. I could see Reddick doing it. I really like what the speed in this car has. I like what he has done in the Xfinity series at this track. Chastain, I just don't know if I can get there. Chase Elliott took a modest step forward at Las Vegas. Well, not really at Las Vegas, but at Phoenix. Maybe not even that, but he is looking a little bit better. But it's just been a rough couple seasons. 8,300 for a driver who is known to be a really good concrete driver. Wins at Nashville, second place finish at Bristol, win at Dover. He's been good at those tracks. Hendrick is strong, 8,300. Definitely a place differential play if he's going to be there. I mean, we don't have to go back too far to see him getting a bunch of hog points. I know it hasn't been good lately, but I'm much more apt to play Chase Elliott than Ross Chastain. Obviously, I want to see how practice goes. I want to see how qualifying goes. On the board, Ty Gibbs, really good race last season. Played the sequencing correct, but started in a position where he could play the sequencing correct. Gets the lead on pit road, is able to lead quite a few laps, ends up with a very solid day, has been extremely good this season, coming into his own, 8,000 for what could be one of the better JGR cars. Yeah, sign me up. Bubba Wallace, like I said, could have possibly had a top 5 car. They're moving in the right direction. I like him a lot more than I do at Phoenix at 7,700. He's definitely a possibility. I might need more savings, though, in this range. He's kind of right there with Alex Bowman. Wallace clearly has a vehicle that's faster. Bowman has been very disappointing this season, which I continue to expect to happen. A lot of his success was with crew chief Greg Ives. He is gone. Ives is working with the team more. And we have seen Bowman's results kind of go down. And just much rather have Wallace. I would put Briscoe in that same category. And sometimes I would worry, does SHR have the right speed? They're all running different setups. They all have different teams almost with all different members. Really hard to put your finger on Stuart Haas. There's a lot of questions. He doesn't give me a lot of savings. I don't know if I can go there. I need place differential. Decent finishes, but at his price, that's probably not going to be enough. Eric Jones, a lot of success way back when with JGR at this track. Legacy has kind of been pretty impressive in their new Toyotas. I could probably consider it at 7,200. I don't expect him to go out and lead laps or run fast laps. Maybe I like him a little bit better than Bowman and Briscoe based on, well, another question is, how's this Toyota going to run at Bristol? Because it wasn't that great at Las Vegas. Phoenix was a whole different thing, right? We run that short track package. How's the Toyota going to hold up at Bristol? Practice should give us a pretty good idea of what Legacy Motor Club has and whether Jones is going to be on the board ahead of Bowman and Briscoe or below them. Either way, in this range, I'm really just not that in love because I know I'm going to be spending on expensive drivers to lead laps based on the typical construction at Bristol. In the 7,000 range, it does occasionally sneak into the optimal lineup, and we might get one of these guys. But will it be one of these? Now, if Gibbs goes out there and leads a bunch of laps, it really kind of throws a wrench in the system because that's going to change the lineup. Like when we had Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski in 2022, priced in the 6K range, leading a lot of laps. But I don't expect that to happen. I expect the drivers priced accordingly at the top, appropriately at the top to control this race. But Gibbs is the one that can absolutely change the direction of the optimal lineup. And then if that happens, though, you don't necessarily need these guys either. If Gibbs provides a lot of value, then you're going to save a lot, and you may not even need to go into this kind of no man's land territory. As far as the struggle of this track, he's pretty affordable. He's been very solid and dependable this season. 11th, finished 11th, Las Vegas, 13th at Phoenix. Driver rating was right around there as well. But this has just not been the track that I like him at. And if I don't really like Chastain in the Trackhouse car, then even though this is a Tennessee race and they are a Tennessee team, but Nashville and Bristol are a long way apart, culturally and geographically. Here's a fast fact: my friend grew up in the Bristol area. He was in the Tri-Cities down in Johnson City, and you can drive from Johnson City to Canada. You can get to Canada first before getting to Memphis, Tennessee. Tennessee is a very diverse state, geographically, culturally. It's a long state. God help you if you ever have to horizontally drive across Nashville. Fun facts. Awesome. You learn a new thing here on the podcast every day. McDowell's been really strong at this track. It's a good place for him. Even when Front Row didn't even have the best equipment, he was getting top 15s. The equipment has gotten better. He's been in quite a few optimal lineups, even in here where he actually lost 5 place differential points, ended up in the optimal lineup. He knows what he's doing. Based on his skill at Bristol, he is too cheap, and he is definitely a place I can go. You're going to be scared because he likely will qualify pretty close to the front, as he did at Bristol last year. Qualified up in the front, held his track position all race long. Very, very solid day. On the board, Gragson having a great season thus far. His SHR car, he is getting the most out of it. They look fast. They look comfortable. They look strong. 6,700. He is still at a cheap price. He's going to be in quite a few lineups. All of these guys down here, we can make a legitimate argument for. It's just the way that this next-gen car runs. Less horsepower. The field is pretty equal. Any of these guys should be top 20s. All of them have a legitimate argument to be a top 15, and they're all quite possible top 10s. And if they're capable of a top 10 at a sub 7K salary, then really the only thing that's going to separate them is who gets a little bit more place differential points, which obviously we don't know yet. But really the only thing that we can do is kind of rank them on who we like the most. Right now, I like McDowell a little bit better than Gregson just because of experience, just because of direction. And remember, McDowell, this is a Ford team, a Ford top-tier team. They've come out and said that. We are part of the premium program now. We're not a secondary Ford team. They share notes with RFK. RFK has been very fast at this track. I give them the bump above Gregson and all the stuff going on at SHR. Not necessarily negative stuff, but a lot of changes. Stenhouse, after that long streak of really bad races at Bristol, if you go back to his earlier days when he had a little bit better of equipment, he was a top 10, top 5 car. I believe 2018 spring, he got himself a top 5 finish. Solid race car driver at Bristol. Showed that last year. Was he a 10th place car? Well, because he played the pit sequencing correct, held on to his position, did what he needed to do. Yeah, they benefited from getting the sequencing correct, but he had enough of a car to hold on to it. Some guys kind of faded a little bit. I will put him on the board, but I would rather go to McDowell and Gregson. But again, place differential is going to be a deciding factor. Less bullish on Barry. Not a lot of experience at Bristol. Don't like what we have seen from this car so far. And as we have mentioned, I just keep referencing that Rodney Childers having to do HR work trying to find someone to work as a mechanic in the middle of a week on Twitter. That's not a good sign for the team. LaJoie hasn't been great, but LaJoie was running well at Bristol in 2023. He was going to have a top 15 day. Spins about a little bit between middle of stage 3. But even if he does get a top 15, still hasn't been the best place. Definitely good, though, that Spire has shown some speed at the track. Obviously, I like McDowell and Gregson more. I would put Stenhouse and LaJoie in the same category. Deciding factor, place differential. Austin Dillon hasn't been great here. I don't like the speed in RCR, but he is incredibly cheap. He does have experience. He can get a top 20. It's going to be a place differential need. If he is starting in the back, which somebody in this field's got to start in the back. Yeah, they're all equal. That's cool. They're all pretty fast. But everybody can't start in the top 20. Somebody's got to start around 30th. It's actually not a complete junker punt. And if you get Dillon starting 28th, he is going to be a thing that we consider at 6,300. When he gets up toward the 7,000s, starting 30th, you can maybe go in another direction if RCR doesn't have speed that week. A lot of it depends on what we see them unload. We could see Chevys come back to the top because Toyota and Ford do have a new model, and we've only seen that at Las Vegas. Phoenix was its own thing. There's the possibility, and one of the narratives or storylines before the season was Chevy should have a bit of an advantage earlier in the year. They obviously weren't going to have it last week or didn't have it last week because the Toyotas really doubled down on Phoenix, the new package, the future championship race. And so Chevy really didn't have that advantage. That advantage could return as we go back to the intermediate track package. Not interested in Cindric. 32nd because he got into a wreck. Even then, I don't know if I see him having the upside of a Michael McDowell or a Gregson. Maybe his is similar to Stenhouse. If he starts in the back, we will have to consider him at 6,200. He did finish 20th. It is a Penske car, although the Penske Fords haven't been great. Not really excited about rostering him. Much rather go a little bit cheaper with Allmendinger in the colored car. Colored cars have not been great this year. Probably the worst Cup Series product they've rolled out. But again, we have a small sample size. We don't have the best sample size of racetracks. We also have drivers jumping in and out. We have drivers that aren't very good. So before we completely downgrade Colleague, we do have to look at who's been driving these cars, what have been the tracks, what have been the situations. It may not be enough to completely write off Colleague. Allmendinger got into the wreck with Cindric, but he does have a top 10. A really solid race. He ran up there all day for Colleague. He does have a Bristol win in the Xfinity Series. 6,100 for my money is probably too cheap. There are questions, obviously. Nemechek, he is so cheap. If Legacy finds some speed, then I will consider it. But he hasn't been great. He's been about where you would expect these Legacy trucks to be. Or trucks. Just did a truck podcast. Sorry, I'm stuck on that. And it's John Hunter Nemechek, truck driver, formerly. So top 25, about where you would expect. Maybe a little bit better. Probably going to need more upside. Ryan Preece might provide that upside. I would say he's got more than Nemechek. He has been really good at this track for various different teams. Seems to know what he is going to do. It just depends on what kind of speed Stewart-Haas gives him. They haven't really given him much. Start the season. Got better at Phoenix, but that is a track where he has done well. That's that package. Las Vegas, we all know that he had his issues in qualifying. So that's not really the best metric. The real guy that we are all going to look at, Phil was tweeting about this earlier this week. Race Sheets on Twitter. 11th place finish. Played the sequencing correct. Held his position all day. Had some pretty good runs, too, if you look at his lap-by-lap data at racefortheprize.com. That was a part-time ride with Legacy Motor Club when they were a Chevy. Luke Lambert was his crew chief. Luke Lambert is now his crew chief again. They are rolling this season. Didn't really do much in the truck race last season. That was dominated by Eckes, but he was in the top 5 all day in that race. 5,800 for Hocevar. Strong argument can be made. He has better upside than Preece, Nemechek, even Allmendinger, Cindric, Dillon, LaJoy, all of these guys. And he's $1,000 cheaper. Really kind of a bit of a no-brainer, but I expect him also to qualify towards the front. So we'll just have to look at it, how it works point per dollar wise, but he does benefit from a lower salary. Steady Eddie Todd Gillen plays the pit sequencing correct, takes a 25th place car, finishes 16th. That could happen again. But again, he played the sequencing correct and maintained his position. Knows his way around this place. Has if I remember correctly, a pretty good truck series race at Bristol. I could be making that up in my mind. Not bad this season. And if we like Michael McDowell at front row, then we have to like Todd Gillen a little bit at front row. He's also going to get some of that good stuff too. Gilliland's been halfway decent in equipment that wasn't great, although we've seen him struggle in good equipment. But he's on the board at 5,700 because we're spending so much money on expensive guys. I don't think we need more than one of these drivers below 6K. But the way qualifying shakes out, we could end up with 2. And the below 5K guys aren't really that terrible, honestly. Preece is not terrible. Hocevar is good. Gilliland got it done last year. Zane Smith, 5,500. Season hasn't really gone the way that we'd like to see. But if we like the speed at Spire for Hocevar, and we like the speed we've seen with LaJoy, even last year, although he didn't get the finish that we would have liked to have seen, at some point that speed's going to rub off. Zane Smith has won at Bristol in the Truck Series. Was running pretty well last year, but a penalty. Hemrick, I don't know if I need to go there this week. I'm not completely in love, like I said, with the colored cars. And the reason is because the guys that have been driving it. I had an issue last week, had to pit unscheduled. That put him 2 laps down. I think he eventually was able to work the flags, got onto the lead lap, but didn't do much there. So his driver rating is not good because of the issues that he had. Finishes the day in 28th, was as high as 22nd at one point, falls back. I would much rather take these guys. It's not like he's significantly cheaper. 5,000 Daniel Hemrick becomes more appealing. Harrison Burton's just out there doing nothing. Nothing good to say about him at all. Everyone's going to overlook him. He will probably start towards the back. We're going to look at his practice data, but everything that we have right now at our hands says don't play Burton. Justin Haley, not a great season so far. He was in the optimal lineup last week as I expected. I did not want to play him, but I made myself play him. He was optimal. He did work. Things played out that made that play work, obviously. But at 5,200, that's kind of what's going to happen, and it can happen. The argument for Justin Haley and for Kaz Grala is that J.J. Yaley in a Rick Ware car has been optimal in 2 of the last 4 races, because there will be some wrecks. Maybe not have carnage or chaos, but every car is not going to finish the race. And more than likely, these Ware cars are going to start in the back. Much rather go to Haley than Grala. Grala probably should be a little bit cheaper. But again, Yaley just keeps his car clean. I went over this in a previous video, that just through attrition, he gets 6 spots. And then even when he got 6 spots, he gets some more because other guys are having issues, and he just outraced them in a track where it wasn't easy to pass. He was better than a couple SHR cars that were on the same lap as him at the end of that race. So, and I'll go ahead and pull that up on the screen just as a reminder. We can see some of these value plays. J.J. Yaley got you 9 place differential points. He passed a couple, but most of that's attrition at 5,000. Gets it done. Again, J.J. Yaley at 5,300. Passes a couple through attrition. Gets it done. 23 fantasy points. Not a lot, but you got to pay up for hog points. You got to pay up for hog points. So you got to save some more. 26 for Yaley. 23 for Yaley. Haley can't be that guy. Absolutely, Haley can be that guy. So he's going to be on the board. And again, if you want to argue, well, if you're going to play Haley, not really because you like the equipment, and I don't, then Hemrick and Burton should also be in play as well. And that's true. If you're going to consider these Rick Ware cars, there's no rule that says, well, it's got to be a Rick Ware car. And really, Yaley benefited from Ty Dillon wrecking, Ryan Newman wrecking, although Newman was with Rick Ware in that race. Some of the other punts, Justin Haley got caught up in a late race wreck. It could have been him last year running for Colleague. So, unfortunately, Hemrick and Burton will be in play. Grala will be in play. Haley will be in play. I'm hoping, though, that these guys, based on the pricing, are much more confident plays, and they're not that much more expensive, and that would be the direction that you go in. But again, these guys could start closer to the front. These guys likely should start closer to the back. And so Zane Smith or these crew may not necessarily benefit from attrition. They may not benefit from teams making mistakes. Whereas Hemrick, Burton, Haley, Grala, likely to start DFL, and in that position, they benefit from those 8 baked-in place differential points that you get just by surviving and turning laps. Hopefully that was a pretty solid breakdown of the salaries, where I'm leaning, what I would do. Obviously, when we see practice and qualifying, everything changes. But it's a good start to the week. Love having you guys around. Love you guys. Blessed to have you guys around. Love you. Trip to Light's fantastic.